Alright, so the next step, we want to actually validate this for real, and to do that we're going to need the natural log of the probabilities for each one of these words you see here on this sheet. And we need two sets of them, so we need, say, you can see these words here, so at mandrill, for example. We want to know the probability of at mandrill occurring, given that we know that it's the app, or excuse me, the app class. And so we need another number too. So for this, we have at mandrill down here too. We also want to know what's the probability of at mandrill occurring, given the fact that it's not about mandrill, it's about other. So how do we do that? We're going to do some fancy nested functions, and one of these is kind of like really important to people who are working in business. It's called the VLOOKUP function, and you remember it from chapter 1 of your reading, hopefully. I've heard a story about a person getting a job in a job interview just because they knew how to use VLOOKUP. Now, there's another function in R called merge. It's actually easier to use than VLOOKUP, in my opinion. But we'll show you VLOOKUP, and I'll make a video later about how to use merge. So here in cell D25, we want to start a formula, click the equal sign, and it equal VLOOKUP, open parentheses, and then we're going to say, okay, we want to look up the word just, right, so cell D2, and then we're going to go over to our app tokens probability. We want to look up the word just, or whatever's in cell D2 in app tokens probability. So I'm going to go over here, and you can see my formula bar still shows that formula from the other screen. And I'm going to select all of these columns, A through E. I'm going to go all the way down here to 821. Alright, so then I press comma, and so what this is going to do is going to look in this entire array here. It's going to look this entire column, rather, and it's going to look for that word that was in cell D2. It's going to try to find it in there. And then we want it to return this number over here in the fifth column, or column E. So to return that, we just put in 5 for fifth column. And then I'm going to type in the word false. And that, from what I understand in the VLOOKUP, I always put false in there, and I was told at one point that that means that that's not going to return any values that are similar to what's in cell D2. It has to be exactly what's in cell D2. So close that, press enter. Now look, we got that log probability, but we need to actually do some more things here. So this formula in the formula bar is going to get a little bit more complicated. So what if it doesn't find the word that we've had? So we had the word just, but what if there's some rare word in here that doesn't happen to be in that column we selected over in the app tokens probability tab? So if we do a VLOOKUP, it's going to return a value called NA, which is sort of like an error. And so we need to check to see whether it's returning NA, because we're going to drag this formula around and try to use it to make sure that we can use it for all the words. So just drag it around easily, type it in once and drag it around easily. So to do that, actually first off, let's go ahead and just put some dollar signs in here to make that a constant. So right now we're looking up the probability of that word occurring given that it came from, given that it was about the app. So we've got the dollar signs in there. That's going to help us drag this formula around later. Now let's check to see whether it's returning an NA value, an error. So we type in equals if. So there's our logical test, if VLOOKUP and we're going to type in if is NA. So there's actually a function for this. So if is NA, and we open up this parentheses here, we close the parentheses over here, put a comma, and now we type in the value we want if it happens to be NA. And if the value happens to be NA, we're going to return the natural log of 1 over app tokens probability. So we go over to our app tokens probability tab, and we type in the log probability that we have down here at the bottom. So you see C28, excuse me, this last value here. So the total number of words, C821 rather. And that's also going to be a constant so that we can drag this formula around. And then we will say, okay, so that's what we want to return, 1 over this number, the probability, or the log of that number. So we click comma, and now we simply do the same thing. So if it is in A, we're going to return this, and if it's not, we can just take this formula here, and we can paste it here. So if it's not in A, that means we have a valid value, and we can just return the value that we looked up in the first place. So close parentheses, click enter. Now we have that formula there. All right, but wait, there's more. We need to wrap this in. We need to wrap this entire function here, this entire set of sort of like nested functions here, in one more if statement, because we want to just forget about any words that are less than or equal to 3 characters long. So we're just going to check for that with an if statement. So we say equals, we put in, just right after that equal sign, put in another if, open parentheses, and we'll do the length function, that's len, and then we're looking at cell D2, and so rather than click on D2, I'll just manually type in D2, and close the parentheses, and we'll say if the length of D2, comma, is less than or equal to, and to put less than or equal to, you just put a less than sign, then an equal sign, equals 3, then we do all of this stuff. So that's it, and then I just need to go all the way over here to the very end of this function, calling it a function, the formula I would say rather. It is technically a function, it's a function of nested functions, and so we're going to have 3 closing parentheses here at the end, and now I can click enter. Whoops, the formula you typed contains an error. Alright, where's my error? Maybe I'm missing another. Oh, I know exactly what I did. Okay, so if the length of D2 is less than or equal to 3, then we're going to make it 0, right? I forgot to return that value. So if it's less than or equal to 3, we're going to put in a 0. That makes it so that we just ignore it. And I'll put comma, now if, and then I should still have my 3 parentheses here at the end, and click enter. Formula still contains an error. What's my error this time? Alright, so let's see what it is. I have my if statement, I have my length checked, I'm saying if it's less than or equal to 3. Oh, I've actually got an extra comma in there. Let's remove that. Our logical statement should not be separated by a comma like that for this particular function. Okay, let's see if it finally works. Third time's the charm. Boom. Okay, great. So now we can pull this value out for all of the different words. That's going to be the next step.